Let's go. Hello, BlockSplit. How are you feeling? Woo, yeah, okay. All right, so I'll be talking about making the blockchain faster. So the title of the talk is Blockchaining Faster. I'm Paweł Cichocki from Nebula Network. You can call me Paul. This does work? Oh, it works. Awesome. This is my teammate Justina sitting over there. Give her a round of applause, please. She's awesome. That's for you. All right, so let's start about why we at Nebula Network care about speed of the blockchain. Oh, this is a cool animation. I wanted to show you that. Okay, so how many of you have heard of Nebula Network at all? All right, some people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Awesome. Great. So let me recap just real quick what we do at Nebula Network. So Nebula Network is basically a distributed cloud platform, and it has storage, plain and indexed. I think we're the only ones to attempt that, and we do computation. Basically, anybody can connect their computer if it's unused, if it's at home. We aim for gaming machines, maybe in the future game consoles. Not for cell phones because of battery and things like that, of course. And what we do is basically we use a cryptocurrency that is used, we make a cryptocurrency that is used as a payment method within the system. And the cool thing about Nebula is the cryptocurrency has a novel emission mechanism. And the emission mechanism is tied to the amount of resources provided within the system. So basically we have a balance there. This plus some other stabilization mechanism allow us to create decentralized, yet still backed by resourced cryptocurrency. So to do that, we need a new blockchain because we tweak the emission mechanism. To make that all work, we need a lot of transactions. So in the past months or even years, we looked at various solutions. And this is a quick recap of what we found and also of our proposals, how to make the blockchain scalable or faster. Maybe it's important to differentiate between speed and scalability, by the way. You know, speed is when an algorithm you have is on the same computer twice as fast as the other algorithm. So for example, this computer can process 1,000 transactions or 2,000 transactions. The 2,000 transactions algorithm is faster, right? But a scalable algorithm is basically that you process, say, 1,000 transactions, but you need 10,000. So what do? You put 10 other computers there, and you get there. That's scalable. And a few solutions we're going to be talking about today are fast, but not necessarily scalable. But first, let's talk why blockchains are slow. All right, so probably all of you know, but let's just check of how knowledgeable you are. How many transactions a second does Bitcoin do? What's the limit? All right, you, sir. That's exactly right. All right, so 7 is the theoretical limit. We actually do much less. But why are blockchains slow? Well, when you think about it, fundamentally, all the transactions from all over the world have to be put into a block that is then sent all over the world again. So singleton, so the blockchain is in a way what we call in algorithms and data structures a singleton. Right? So in a way, it's like being centralized. Everything meets in one point and then spreads out again. So obviously that doesn't scale. So with a single global blockchain, the speed you have is basically block capacity over block time. And that's fundamental. Some people think that when we'll get faster computers, then Bitcoin will be faster. Actually, Bitcoin doesn't scale with the amount of processing power within that system. You probably know that, right? Okay, we have this formula. So the solution is simple. Just let's make a huge block, let's make huge blocks and small block time, and we're set, right? Or not? So why not just tweak the parameters? Well, in case of, some people do that, but in case of public blockchains, and I heard once a man say that a private blockchain is not a blockchain. You might agree, you might disagree, but anyway, for big, possibly public permissionless blockchains, what you want is many miners, and all of them need to keep up, right? So all of them need to have the processing power and basically the connectivity. So let's talk about the limiting factors. There was research done on the Bitcoin network of how fast a mined block spreads. Cool work done by Christian Decker and Roger Waterhofery. I hope I pronounced that right. And this is a graph from their paper. It measures the block size and how fast it spreads. Basically, this is a parameter delay over size. So this is constant, so it basically, after some initial headroom. So basically, it means the bigger the block, the slower it spreads, which is what we expect, right? So if we have twice as big blocks, then to distribute them all over the network, it will take twice as much time. So what happens when a block doesn't spread in time? What do you get? I'm sorry? Latency? Yeah, you get latency. Well, what you get is, if you don't make it in time during the block time, some other miner will probably come up with a different block, and you get a fork. Not a hard fork, just a fork in the chain. You have two heads of the chain for some time, and then one will get abandoned, and you get an orphaned part of the blockchain. And why is that bad? Well, if you want to be sure that that your transaction made it into the chain, if you consider that the block you see is an orphan and that the probability of having orphans is big, you have to wait many more blocks. So again, if you have to wait many more blocks to be sure that your transaction made it into the blockchain, well, it's slower again, right? So the other limiting factor is the speed of processing transactions. So basically, for the algorithm used in most cryptocurrencies, popular cryptocurrencies, you get about 1,000 of them confirmed, checked on a 2015 hardware, so 3-year-old hardware, one core. So for 1,000 transactions, it's fine. It's way more than the 7 transactions a second we talked about. For smart contracts, of course, this is more problematic. But for now, this is critical. All right, so what are the existing solutions? So this is a list of some of the solutions I'll be talking about. And there are some higher level solutions you probably heard about. The most popular ones now are Lightning Network probably and Plasma. So let's first talk about Ghost, which is basically used in Ethereum right now. So anybody know how many transactions a second Ethereum can process? Anybody? Ethereum, how many transactions a second does Ethereum do? Okay, yeah, 15, about 15, that's right. So how do they do it? When we said that Bitcoin, it's not easy to make it faster. It's also a political problem, there were proposals to actually increase the block size, you heard about the SegWit 2x proposals probably that were so problematic within the community. So this is a classical blockchain, right? And here you can see the orphaned blocks, basically, right? So the blockchain goes bam, 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 bam. Here we had 2 blocks, right? So this is what we're trying to prevent. And we already said that if we drive the blockchain too fast, this happens a lot, right? So this is a problem if you have a double spend. But what if actually all miners are honest? And if we are able to check for double spends, then most people will be honest because there's no point in cheating when you will be detected anyway, right? So let's assume those nodes are honest and there is no double spend in those blocks. The transactions in those blocks are probably, it's a similar set of transactions. What we can do is just take those orphaned blocks into the blockchain, merge them in In Ethereum, those are called uncles, and you get an uncle reward. And yeah, that's how basically how Ethereum is faster. So they have way shorter block times, and yeah, they use directed acyclic graph instead of a tree, right? All right, so then we have Bitcoin NG. This is example of a solution which is not really scalable, but is faster. How is it faster? Well, as we said, all the blocks have to meet in one place, and then this has to be sent out again. In Bitcoin NG, or as implemented in Waves actually, you have nodes that are leaders, become leaders when they mine the block. And then they process all the transactions for a certain while. And then the fees, the transaction fees goes a little bit to them, a little bit to the next leader. So that system prevents them from cheating, or so the creators hope. And because we have, this temporal, in a way, centralization that gets switched, the leader gets switched up all the time. We hope the system is, as a whole, in a way, decentralized still and secure. So they do over 100 transactions a second, I think. But it doesn't seem to get faster with the size of the network. Because, well, basically the fundamental problem of, yes?
So how the validation works in Bitcoin NG?
I'm sorry?
There is only one validator?
Yes, in a way it's, I mean, you can validate the transactions yourself too, but one node is the leader and is responsible for broadcasting all the transactions and, actually adding the block to the blockchain. So it's not like everybody has to, process everything. It's one leader for a certain amount of time, for I think 10 minutes or so. It's not really a proof of authority because this leader is still anonymous. They're incentivized not to cheat with this fee split algorithm. And if they cheat, it actually can revert back to what the correct solution is, right? But it's in a way centralized, but just for a little while. And it's not by proof of authority, it's by, basically economic incentives. All right, so then there's Ripple, right? So Ripple is technically not a blockchain, but it's still a distributed ledger. It does, I think, about 1,000 transactions a second. And what they do is basically they have those servers unique, and they keep a unique node list. They check for connectivity to prevent attacks where those servers would be, split up into groups and couldn't vote properly. And basically they have this vote if the ledger is valid or not in each step. They actually have no solution, or at least I know of none, against Sybil attacks. And and the nodes are authorized, their identity is known. So in a way, it's a proof of authority identity type thing. So maybe that's why many people criticize Ripple so much. All right, then there's IOTA Tangle. So IOTA Tangle is this cool idea of basically having, instead of a blockchain, what they call a tangle, or block mesh, or transaction mesh, different names I heard. So the idea is each transaction should actually have hash links to two previous transactions. And they say there is no mining, no transaction fees, because basically each transaction does a little, probably proof of work, and ties to other transactions. So the analysis of this is quite complex. The system is not really secure against, a part of the mesh overtaking the other part when you have a lot of resources, a lot of computational power. There are no things such as difficulty in this approach. But to prevent some attacks, they limit, for example, the size of funds that can be transferred in a transaction. So you cannot do, say, one big transaction that, that destabilizes the system in a way. So it's an interesting concept, but a lot of claims that cannot be supported really. But yeah, but still, it's interesting to learn about their solution, I think. So okay, let's talk a little bit about our approach, and again, let's focus on the fundamentals here. So, what models of security do we have in the blockchain space? Basically, one model is everybody verifies everything, right? That's the basic blockchain assumption. But that is slow, and that can't scale. You know, if everybody verifies everything, the speed with which you go is limited by the single node, and then on top of that, you have all those transmissions, right? So then, some other approaches are you trust selected nodes to verify. So that's centralization again for you, right? One approach to scalability is split the streams of transactions into pieces, right? And then if you have the streams of transactions split into many substreams, many smaller pieces, you can verify those streams selectively. So you can have verifiers, miners or stakers or whatever you call the people who actually. They can look at each substream or at many of them, and you can be sure that each part of the network is verified by many people, but not everybody or even nobody has to verify the whole thing. Is that clear, or any questions up to this point? All right, and one thing to notice as well is, you know, if you verify something, generally speaking, when you verify something once or twice or 3 times, the probability that when you have each verification has a probability of being correct or incorrect from your perspective, right? If say 1,000 verifications came through, then the probability doesn't necessarily increase very much when you have the 1,001st one, right? So you have this curve where the probability of you being correct or the verifiers being correct, it grows quickly, but with the amount of verifications, it sort of stabilizes, right? All right, so does it work? Okay, so this is your DAG ghost blockchain or classical blockchain. This is what we propose. So we have a multi-chain. So we have many strands of many chains, and people can have funds on different chains. And yeah, there are some problems with that, of course. But to alleviate, one thing to keep in mind, we put hashes of some blocks into something we call the master chain. And basically it synchronizes all those chains. So, yeah, okay. There are some questions there. How do we split off the subchains? How do we make the subchains secure? Because, you know, with a single blockchain, you worry about this 51% attack. Some people say about a 30% attack. Basically, the smaller the blockchain, the less secure it is, right? And, transferring funds between the addresses, it's a problem too. So let's talk about those problems. And one more thing to keep in mind before we answer those. Not all transactions are born equal, right? So if you pay for coffee, you want your transaction instant because the coffee gets cold, right? You don't want cold coffee. Or maybe you like iced coffee, I don't know. Who likes iced coffee? Iced coffee, anybody? Okay, so you all need fast transactions. Nobody actually here likes cold coffee. Too bad, I actually do. Okay, so if somebody likes cold coffee, or if you send a lot of money across continents, you don't really care for it to be instant, right? I mean, you know, whatever you pay for, if it's physical, it will arrive in a few days anyways, right? So this idea of having all transactions with a similar speed is not really helpful. So that's another, basically, when making things faster, one thing to do it is also to, you know, desynchronize the system, similar to what you have in, say, CPUs and caches, right? Not all memory speed. You have your registers, your L1, L2 caches, then you have, you know, your RAM, your swap space, and so on. Then you have some, you know, online cloud storage. Same thing could happen with blockchains. All right, so how do we split off the subchains? Basically, in our system, when we detect that a stream of transactions is too slow, we split the stream into two. And there are a few ways we are attempting to do that. One is just automatically. So, you know, just take, you know, the first bit of the address, all the ones that get 0 or go to the one subchain, all the ones with the 1 bit at the beginning go to the other chain. This is currently what we think the most secure approach, but then there are some cool other approaches we're experimenting with. One is with clustering. So basically what you do is when you look at the graph between the addresses of transactions, you see certain patterns, certain clusters. So there are some people who always go, say, always go to the same coffee shop, always buy coffee. You know, putting them on the same subchain is beneficial. And then there's on demand, so users could, in theory, put some parameters of their addresses, like geographical location. And then when we split the chains, we sort of try to put the ones that put similar preferences into the same subchain. All right, so how do we make the subchains secure? So first of all, we use proof of stake. Proof of work is simple and secure, and that's basically all of its advantages. It's very wasteful, but proof of stake has some additional advantages. So what you can do with proof of stake, and I think most new proof of stake systems right now are like that, you can lock capital and use it to reimburse people when you detect that, for example, a double spend was staked. Right? You can further limit, a double spend can be a multiple spend, but you can, in certain ways, limit the possibilities of signing really very many multi-spends. So we call our proof of stake a proof of collateral. So basically, we lock the capital of the staker for a certain amount of time, and if we detect that he or she mined or staked a block with a double spend, we reimburse the parties with the money from the collateral. A cool thing to look into is this, in a way, if you have 100% coverage in the collateral, you have a certain limit of how much money you can transfer in one block. And in a way, you get similar problems as described in IOTA. So the transactions can be infinitely big. You cannot transfer all your funds in one transaction. You have to split it off into many smaller transactions for it to be completely secure. And then for long-running attacks, we also put hashes of the blocks into the master chain. Who can put hashes into the master chain? Basically, someone who has funds, so can give a collateral on both side chains that get put into a single block in the master chain, or all the hashes. Somebody who, say, puts hashes of subchain A, B, and C has to have funds on subchains A, B, and C. And then everybody can see the master chain, so they can verify that, hey, somebody who didn't have funds on our chain tried to put a fake hash of our subchain into the master chain. And they can inform nodes from the other subchains. If he has funds nowhere, well, it just gets discarded and whatever, right? Oh, I just said that. And how do you transfer funds between addresses that do not share a subchain? Well, basically you can destroy, we call those operations teleport in and teleport out. You destroy the money, burn the money in one chain, and it pops up in another chain. This has to wait for the master chain, unfortunately, to sync. So those are those slower transactions. But then there's also a mechanism inspired by the Lightning Network. So basically you can transfer through someone that has funds on two subchains. So say if I have funds on subchain A, and I want to send to someone who has money on subchain D, and he has funds on both A and D, I send money to him, and he basically sends money to the other guy on the other subchain. All right, so let's talk maybe about this Lightning Network that we already mentioned. So how many of you actually know how Lightning Network works? Okay, a few people. You'll be bored, you can leave. No, just kidding, please stay. All right, so basically step one is to create a secure channel, right? So you lock a certain amount of funds. So imagine Alice and Bob want to do transactions. They put 10 coins each into this secure channel. It can be a smart contract, it can be some other way. Basically, those funds are locked. But what they can do now is send each other signed transactions, but to each other, not through the blockchain. So it's off-chain to update this common balance. So for example, if Alice wants to pay Bob 3 coins, we update the state that Alice has 7 coins, Bob has 13, and so on. So those transactions can be numbered, and once they want to take their coins somewhere else, they just put the final balance into the blockchain and extract their shares of the buffer there. There's a certain grace period. So when, for example, I say, okay, let's destroy this channel. I want to take my coins, and Alice disagrees. She can always put those transactions were numbered, right? So she can put a newer version and say, hey, Bob, actually this is not the last transaction, Bob cheated. And the wait period is for Alice to have a chance to do that. So now that we established that a single channel can be achieved. Any questions to that, by the way? Yes, sir? It depends on the solution. I think what was proposed now in Lightning Network is half an hour. But please don't kill me if I got this time period wrong.
Does it mean that if I'm offline for 30 minutes and my client is offline for 30 minutes, I might be cheated?
Yes, if you're off and somebody sent the old state to the blockchain with a request to destroy the channel, you can be cheated. But there are also ideas how to mitigate that. So one idea is for you to send also the problem could be DDoSed, right? So for example, somebody who tried to cheat you opened a channel with you, then send a request to kill the channel, and before you can, prove him wrong, they DDoS you so you cannot send anything, right? They attack your ISP or something. But what you could do is you could send your latest transaction to some other third-party nodes, which then can police the network. So even if you are down, those other helpers, let's call them helpers, can send to the network the latest state from you to the network, right? It could be set up that they get a little reward if they send the latest state, not you. So yeah, so you can secure it that way. But of course, there has to be a certain period of time for waiting, and yeah, there is this risk that if nobody is able to send the latest state, and say Bob gets to, you know, or Eve, usually in cryptography we have Alice, Bob, and Eve, right? So if Eve wants to extract those funds, is able to extract before somebody, you know, proves her wrong, well, too bad. Okay, but step 2, you have one-to-one channels, right? To make it work across the whole network, you basically do routing. So if you want to send things from A to Q, you just find the route, right? A to C has a channel, secure channel, C to F has a secure channel, F to K has a secure channel, and so on, right? Simple. But there's still one problem. What if somebody along the way doesn't cooperate, right? So what if, say, C to F sends the funds through their channel, right? And F says, screw you, right? What the Lightning Network proposes is basically we send the secret over to the final node, and all those transactions are valid only if you additionally supply a certain secret. So basically, if Q doesn't receive the secret, then all those transactions are invalid, and so nobody can cheat. So that's Lightning Network for you. Of course, it has limitations. One limitation is the funds are technically locked from the perspective of the blockchain that this is in addition to. The other limitation is you have to open those channels, and if you have a trade deficit, so if money flows mostly one way, for example, then those channels will get depleted, right? They have a certain limit of how much money you can transfer through the Lightning Network before you have to open another channel, right? All right, so let's talk about Plasma real quick. Actually, Plasma is somewhat similar to Nebula Network's multi-chain. So basically, what they came up with, and it's actually funny, when you throw a similar problem to many engineers, many of them actually come with similar solutions. So in a way, it's cool that people from Plasma came up with similar ideas to ours. It sort of even makes us happy because, we think we're definitely on the right track. So basically, with Plasma, you spawn off chains which sync or send little hashes to the main chain with time. If it's similar to Nebula's network multi-chain, but funds are again, like in Lightning Network, locked on the main chain, right? So here's the key difference, because people often ask me now that Plasma is out, or the white paper is out, that how are you guys different from Plasma? So in our solution, the master chain just contains the hashes, and the funds are actually just to interlock everything. And here the funds are actually locked on this root chain. So our master chain has very smaller blocks in a way. All right, so what happens when things go wrong? You can still, just like in Lightning Network, just alert the root chain, and the root chain has then the ability to execute all the operations that were happening on the side chain and determine who's right, who's wrong, in a way. All right, so this is Plasma, and I think I'm going to be out of time soon. So let's talk now maybe. We're hiring as well, so shameless plug. If you want to build something cool together, go to this web address and see, maybe there's something interesting for you. This is my email if you want to contact me, and maybe you have some questions.